How's it going, Grady Nation? Chris Thomas here. Hope you're having a great day kind of day. And on this installment of Grady Nation, I'm talking with Ellie Noir. She's an actress and model. To learn more about Ellie, go to www.ellienoir.co.co. Ellie, how are you doing?
Thank you, Chris, for having me. I'm so glad to be here. I'm really good. I'm really good. How are you?
I'm doing well, and I'm very excited to be talking with you about everything you've done. You've had a pretty eclectic career already. Now, what was your first instance where you were inspired to consider a career as an entertainer?
So, when I was a child, I always tried to start from the very beginning. It's very interesting because my family, obviously, I was born in northern Italy. My family was quite conservative, I would say. So, none of my parents were into any sort of like entertainment, and they didn't have this any sort of interest into entertainment industry at all. But I remember being always this kind of creative child, and I used to look at cartoons and animations and films, and I think I used to want to put myself into the bodies almost of these people that I used to see on TV. um, and I think psychologically, so my parents divorced when I was very young, and so for a child I think it's kind of harsh when you see your parents split, even though you don't really acknowledge that happening. But basically, I think I used this entertainment that I used to see in cartoons and try to hide myself in there. So I used to be like, okay, so I'm pretending to be this person now, this person that I used to like obsess over, for example, in a film or cartoon or whatever it was. And I used to literally play like I was them. I used to watch the film or cartoon, whatever it was, specifically so many times, to the point that I was basically like speaking like them, learning the lines of what they were saying, and just being that character, which I find it very, looking back, I find it so funny and almost absurd. But at the time, I didn't obviously knew that that was what I wanted to do. It was just so natural to me to want to portray somebody else, and like recreate outfits, recreate props, of these characters that I used to see and be passionate about. So the moment I realized that I wanted to pursue a career in entertainment happened so clear to me, like crystal clear, when I moved to London. I was like 18. Um, and I remember going to watch this film, Crimson Peak, from Guillermo del Toro. It's like, I think it's like an amazing, amazing film, and it holds a special place in my heart because the moment I walked out of the cinema, I don't know how, something hit me in the head almost, metaphorically speaking, of course. And I was like, I think this is what I want to do. I think I want to do that. I think I want to be an actress. I think I want to be in films, and I think I want to do exactly this. And from that moment onwards, basically, it's almost as if the path of acting and drama was just formed in front of me, because I started looking into classes, I started looking into courses, um, I started looking into a website where I could apply for castings and so on. And basically, that took me to where I am now. Um, yeah.
Were there other particular artistic works that stood out to you at a young age? And what were the qualities that you found them interesting and inspiring?
I think I remember liking quite a lot films like The Lord of the Rings, for example. And I think, for example, that film was very stimulating for me because I remember going specifically because obviously I was lucky enough to live in the mountain-ish, like in a small town where there was a lot of nature around, and I used to play in nature a lot, and discover this side of myself that I obviously developed later on, of being like, I like to explore, I like um to learn from everything that I see. So in some ways it formed me into expressing myself in interesting ways, and also obviously I'm actually into fashion as well, because I used to see all these costumes and I liked the idea of dressing up as well. So the idea of being like, oh, maybe I could create this costume and just try it out and just be different and just be somebody else, and something that no one has ever seen, and you just see it in films, you know. So I think specifically the Lord of the Rings was very important in my development, I would say, when I was much younger. um, my mom used to take me to the cinema quite a lot, but other than specifically would say cartoons, uh, there wasn't really a film, or something more specific that really stood out for me, other than again the Lord of the Rings at that time, um, and again, yes, the Crimson Peak, of course.
Now, as you mentioned, you moved from northern Italy to the UK at the age of 18 to pursue your career endeavors. What was it about the UK that made you feel this was the ideal place to pursue your goals?
It's very interesting because the reason I moved to the UK was because I've always been, since primary school, I've always been very interested in learning English, and speaking English like a native. I don't know why that happened. Oh, I think I was a huge fan of the singer Avril Lavigne at that time, like a lot of my probably people from my age. I was very almost obsessed with her to the point that I was just like, I want to be like her. I want to be like her. But what is the way I could be like this person so much? And it was by, for me, it was by being able to speak English like she was. I know she's not British, but so I started developing this interest in wanting to learn English a lot and wanting to be the best Italian to speak English. And I don't know, it just became a passion for me. But also, aside of that, there was also the fact that I've always been interested in exploring the world, seeing the world. Not, I never felt like I belonged in Italy. So when I got the chance to study in the UK, um, I absolutely took it. And when I was in the UK for the 4 weeks where I attended this course to basically, learn English, even though my English was still pretty good, I took the chance. And during my 4 weeks time there, I literally worked very hard to find a job and to move into the country. And also because I always thought, and I think this is not just a thought, I think it's just how reality is. Um, the entertainment industry works mostly in the US and in the UK. And that's just how it is. So I always thought, if I go into the UK, I'll have a lot more resources to do anything really. Whatever that is, I felt like there was a lot more chances because it's the UK. And for me, the UK at the time was like the biggest accomplishment. I could, the biggest place for me to be in, especially London. I've always been so madly in love with London. I remember coming the first time when I was like 12. And I remember I was with my mom and my sister, and I remember seeing some people just walking around the street, and I said to myself, when I will be 20, I will be walking these streets with a Starbucks in my hand, and I will just be living in London and living my life here. And the fact that then it happened, it's kind of it's kind of crazy to me, really, because it's something that I always wanted. Um, so yeah, that's basically how I transferred from Italy from to London. Yeah.
Just in case people are wondering, this segment is sponsored by Starbucks. No, I'm kidding. Uh, but I find it interesting that you feel like you did not fit in Italy. What was the dynamic where it didn't seem like there was that connection or that synchronicity?
I I there isn't something specific. It's just that I felt like there was so much more outside of Italy, and to me, being anywhere outside of Italy meant growing up meant that I was accomplishing something. I don't know what specifically didn't make me feel like I belonged in Italy, but I feel like probably the fact that I just felt like deep inside there was something. It's a really good question that you ask, but I don't really have an answer for that. I just felt like I could bring there was just so much more outside, and I think I just wanted to explore. And once I stepped out, I realized that there was no coming back for me. Um, I just felt like probably being in Italy was almost being stuck in the place where I lived all my life and where there was no necessarily room for growth because I wasn't really seeing a life there. Um, because I think, you know what it is? I think I really always like to challenge myself. I always enjoyed challenges, and probably that's the reason that got me to go, you know, I just want something else. I just want to see something else. I just want to see how the world outside of what I know of the world is, if that makes sense.
Definitely. Now, over the years, you've been in short films like Clickbait, The Voice Within My Silence. You've been on stage in plays and musicals. You've done modeling work. If you were told you can only do one genre or type of work in the entertainment field, which would you choose and why? So, if you can only pick one genre, one type, which would it be?
You mean between the modeling and acting, or just one genre of between stage and
Yeah, like if you
film?
only film or stage or modeling, if you had to choose one, which would it be?
I had this question asked before, and I think probably film. Um, it's a hard one because I really enjoy all of them, and for very different reasons. But I think film. It's just so exciting for me because I mean, there's a different preparation either for both when you're on stage and when you're um, behind a camera. Sorry, in front of the camera. But it's so exciting because of the effort and the amount of work that you see other people putting into. Especially, I've recently done a Netflix show. I was in a Netflix show, which was very exciting because it was one of the biggest projects I've been into, and the amount of attention to detail and the crew and so it was like extremely mind blowing for me, like the lighting, the equipment, you know, how many times you are required to do a scene and the people around you, and you know it's just it's so exciting. So I would say film, absolutely, especially, do you know what it is, because then you can see the product of what you've done and you can see how much you have done something and how much it is changed by lighting, by editing, by music, because you know I have like a huge passion for music as well. I've been trying to do some compositions while I was at university, which was very interesting, by the way. It was very nice. So I quite like the element of film because it has a soundtrack underneath, which makes a scene completely different from how you just shoot it, basically. Um, like the emotions behind an edited scene, it's absolutely insane. I think it's insane because you shoot one scene in one way and then it completely changes when it's edited. It gives you a completely different emotion, and seeing that from a different perspective, because obviously you're in front of the camera, you just do whatever you have to do, your scene, and then once you see it edited, you go, wait, was that me? Did I actually do that? Wow, you know, I feel like it's mind blowing. So, yes, definitely, I would say film, definitely.
The music is a character in the film. It's almost a underappreciated and unspoken character in a film project.
Absolutely, I
How
agree.
do you avoid getting feelings of competition with other performers. Do you find yourself that, you know, having a rivalry or thoughts that, uh, person X is getting roles that I would like, and I find that frustrating.
I think it's a struggle because I was actually thinking about this the other day while I was like, journaling and writing my thoughts down. It's very hard because obviously right now we're in a society where we see everything on social media, and so we compare ourselves to other people every single day. And so I was literally asking myself, if I didn't have social media and I was looking at my career for what it is right now, would I be content? Would I doubt myself as much as sometimes I do doubt myself because I go, wait, but I could be doing so much more. Why is this person, for example, getting this role or doing this other project or being where I want to be? So I think what I do to keep myself grounded and try not to compare myself too much um, to others and be like, wait, I could be doing so much more, or I could be at that stage instead of this one, is that I try to remind myself that I'm how I feel. First of all, I just check in with my feelings and go, how happy and how do I feel about where I am right now? And then I ask myself, could I do better? And if so, what could I do? Where did I slack? And on the other hand, I just go, I know that this is where I'm supposed to be right now because this is the moment. This moment cannot be changed right now. I can change the future by, for example, pushing myself harder, but I cannot change what has happened. I cannot change this very moment. And so I try to remember to remind myself that I am in the right place and I'm where I'm supposed to be, and I can try and learn from others and go, wait, but if I want to get to the point where somebody I look up to is. How can I get to that? How can I get there? Can I ask somebody? Can I research more? But I genuinely, I just try to be, to look into myself and go, where can I just improve and how can I not judge myself for where I am right now? Because genuinely I am doing my best at what I do, and who the other person that I'm looking up to is doing their best, and I try not to take things too personally, because I think it's so much easier to get lost into being like, well, oh, maybe I'm not good enough, or maybe it's because I don't look this way, or maybe I should change my hair. But try to remind myself that if somebody have to want me for me, and I want them to want me for me, because building a facade at the end of the day is not really gonna gonna work in the long term.
So if the opportunity presents itself, you're not going to push Lily Collins into moving traffic, is what you're saying.
I mean, I would try to do it in a nice way. No, I'm joking.
Oh, okay.
I think there's always room for growth, and I always, it's if I get the opportunity to ask someone how they got where they are, I try to. I used to be such a struggle for me to actually email people and go, "Hey, I'm interested in joining your project," or "Hey, how did you go about doing this thing and this other thing?" Most of the time, people don't reply to you, but I've started to realize that at least you tried and you did that. And most of the time, when you envy someone, when you have envy, well, that's a big word, but when you have negative feelings towards somebody, it doesn't benefit you and it's not going to really bring you anything, even in your career, even in how you feel about yourself. So I really try to be like, Ellie, just try and stay grounded, try to be positive and actually love yourself and what you're doing, because you're doing great. There's always room for improvement, but right now in this very moment, you're where you're supposed to be.
Now, obviously, misogyny is a major problem in so many different fields of work, but uh, in the areas of acting and modeling, it seems to be glaring. Have you encountered experiences where you have been mistreated because of your gender, and how do you avoid those feelings of inadequacy that people might place on you just because they have some uh, about you and your look?
I think in acting, I've been lucky enough to never have encountered issues like these. Um, or at least I never felt like I did. Obviously, for modeling is a little bit harder because the frustrating things about modeling that sometimes made me go, oh, I don't think I actually want to do that anymore. But then I go back to it because I enjoy doing it and it's what I want to do. So I try not to let that stop me. Is that obviously they are a lot more selective and a lot more strict, which one of the things that I would like to change is exactly that. I know that the industry is changing and is developing and is growing and is being a little bit more inclusive. But for example, I'll be honest, I am 5'3", so a lot of things I cannot do, or it's harder for clients to go, "Hey, I want to book you because I'm shorter than the average model should be," or maybe for the tattoos and stuff like that. So I do feel like sometimes for some jobs and agencies it's kind of it did feel like, oh, it's but because I'm for example, some agencies, if you're not over 5'5", they don't even consider you. And I can respect that because obviously they have their own niche and they have their own um they know what they want and they know what they're looking for. But the fact that they would not hear you out, they would not see you, they would not give you a chance, um it's a little bit upsetting, I would say. um but other than that, I never really, I've been fortunate enough not to really have something specific go to me and say, no, I'm not choosing you because you're Italian or because XYZ, and I think I've been also lucky enough because I know that probably not being a native sometimes can influence getting roles. But I've always been a quite, my clients have always been quite happy with the fact that I can speak fluent English and I can look Italian at the same time and speak Italian and, do different accents. So I think I've been quite lucky on that front.
Yeah, I was wanting to be respectful, so I wasn't going to ask for the Cockney accent, but I am tempted, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Now, one of the things you mentioned as having been a major benefit of your work is being able to travel and see the world. How has your experience seeing so many different places and cultures enhanced your skill set as a performer?
So I since I moved to London again when I was 18, I've traveled so much. And my first biggest travel was actually in my first biggest when I was 19 at the time. I went to Taiwan because in London I met this Taiwanese girl, which I'm still friends with to this day, and she was lovely. And she had me over actually in Taipei with her, and seeing the culture there, seeing how things are completely different than than it is in here in Europe for me, obviously, um, was incredibly enlightening because I took something from, for example, how they move, how they walk, how they talk, how they really relate to one another, and took it with me in a sense of how can I channel this in a character that I'm going to portray if the character is usually like a kind of person or whatever really this character would be. um I I take all these elements of what I see, and then obviously the fact that I've been able to travel to America quite recently. I've been to New York and LA in the past 2 years quite a few times, um, and see how the culture is there and compare it to how it is here and compare it to how is it in Italy. Um, It's very interesting because I can choose which person would be which, because obviously New York gave me a different insight of how people behave with one another, and LA again completely different, and how they would behave with one another. So I think it's not, I feel like, it's for an actor it is a lot about training, but it is a lot about how you naturally embody it. So for me it comes quite naturally to go, for example, I have to play this very sassy character, and I'll just go, okay, I'm going to take a bit of elements of what I've seen in New York, of people, what people would do in New York, how people would walk in the street in New York, very rushed or very like, I am I'm the center of attention, or a bit like in Milan. In Milan, people are completely behave in a completely different way that they would in the south of Italy, for example, in Rome. So I kind of take that and I go, okay, I can mix this person that I've met in New York and mix it with this person that I met in Milan and create this person, this other person, which is this character, and use it, use it as in my advantage, and go, how would I build this person based on what I learned in these different cities and these different environments. And I think that's really helpful. It's quite hard to put it into words. Um, it's so much easier to just do it. um, but yeah, I think traveling also kind of opens up a view about the world that obviously makes you grow, and also traveling on your own, especially. Um, it's an experience that changes you. I I went to New York on my own a couple years back, and it was one of the best trips I've ever done, really. Because people told me, "Oh, you're crazy! I cannot believe you're going on your own in New York by yourself." And I was just like, "Why? There's nothing scary about it. It's just me wanting to go for a trip and wanting to experience life in my own terms and not having to obey to anybody and just do whatever I want in a city that I love, and learn a little bit more and grow a little bit more by just doing what I want to do without being bound to anyone." Um, so in some ways you kind of grow that way too. And the characters that I do are also fueled by my growth, and the growth that I've been doing in the past years. So I think, when you work on yourself, automatically you work on your craft as well, because you start to learn more things about who you are. And so you can put a lot more of these elements that you know about yourself into these characters and create someone that is very more relatable and someone that is more rich and complex.
Do you find that it's hard to maintain meaningful friendships in your line of work? Because I can imagine that people feel that they're being scrutinized by you at all times. I mean, you're making note of how they're moving, how they're talking, their cadence. They might be feeling like they're being scrutinized by you. Do you think that they get self-conscious and they might be reticent to open up to you and really show the true essence of who they are to you? Because you're always you're processing a lot of information about them, m- either consciously or unconsciously, because of your
Yeah,
work.
yeah. I think absolutely. Also, I'm a very observant person, and I think I try to make people feel comfortable. If there's one thing that I try to avoid, is ever making somebody uncomfortable. Um, because I know how it feels like. So I try my best. But I think for sure, um, I don't know if they notice it that much, but I have started to notice in the past, months or so, and time in the recent times, that the more I get serious about my work, the more my career is, going well, the more some people withdraw from you. And I think it's the nature of the job. I do understand. And you know, maybe there are these elements of jealousy or feeling, oh, but I feel like you're just better than me now because you're doing this and that. And so I've started to really notice the people that are celebrating my victories with me and the people that are just withdrawing and maybe feeling just kind of putting themselves in the corner there because maybe they feel uncomfortable. I'm hoping I do not feel make them feel uncomfortable, but and not scrutinized for sure. I hope they don't feel that way. But it may be inevitable. Maybe on a subconsciously I do it. So it is hard, and I'm aware that it's going to get even harder to keep some friends and friendships. But at the same time, I know that, again, things happen for a reason. And I know that obviously growing into becoming who you want to be, sometimes you just have to let go of some people. And sometimes your vibration is different to somebody else's, because if you're growing and the other person is not ready, I'm not saying not ready to grow in the same level as you, because I feel like that would be wrong to assume and to say, but you would just not would be on the same level, and so you would not be feeling as comfortable with each other anymore, and that's just part of it. um yeah, and it kind of makes me sad sometimes, because you go, I had friends that I thought were going to be friends for the rest of my life, and the moment I was started talking about the accomplishments that I was making and the things that were happening to me, they automatically started to become colder and colder, and then eventually the friendships broke, which is kind of sad. But at the same time, I do not feel bad, because I know that I'm doing this for myself and I have no hard feelings towards them, and I know that they're choosing to do the best things for them, and I'm choosing to do the best thing for me. um Obviously, I think it's always hard, it's always nice to not, to be humble at what you do. um but at the same time, I don't want to feel conditioned not to talk about my career, my achievements to my friends. And I feel like the fact that sometimes I have to go, oh no, maybe I'm not going to mention that I've got this job, or I got this opportunity, or this, this traveling plans. Maybe I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to make it feel uncomfortable or make them feel like I'm better than them. So it is hard. Sometimes it is, yeah.
Well,
But I
now
think it's just the
I'm
aspect.
I'm more worried that one of them is gonna push you into incoming traffic as opposed to you push Lily Collins. Now, a lot of actors become immersed in the characters they play. How are you able to set aside the feelings and the mindset of the characters you play once the role is finished? Or do you sometimes find yourself thinking back to that mindset that you were in while playing a character?
I think, yeah, I think, the thing with me is that I really like to, as an actor, I really like to immerse myself in the character. And so I like to read about the person that I'm going to portray. I like to think about a bit like them and go, how would this person react? How can I go one day by being like that, method acting, I suppose, but how can I just learn from this person and make something that this character would do that I could use at my advantage in my everyday life. But no, to answer your question, yes, sometimes it takes me a while to snap out, in the sense that I do it very quickly. So I'm in a scene and I'm basically start crying, for example. I have to cry, and I do it, and then scene cut. I completely switch to being myself again. But some other times, depending on how deep the character I'm portraying is, sometimes I do carry it with me. Depends, and also depends how attached I feel to that person and the emotions that that person has. I say person by meaning character, but because yeah. So I think sometimes I do carry the characters with me, but I think inherently, or now that I think about it, I probably carry all of them, not extremely, because I'm still being my person, myself, but I probably do have a little bit of elements of all of these characters that I've been portraying. And depending on situations, I go, hey, that character would behave that way. For example, if I'm in a situation where I feel uncomfortable, or I feel like I'm not 100% confident, I think, how would the character that I played time ago, that was very confident, that was very out there, they knew exactly who they wanted to be, what they wanted to do, would do in this in the circumstance? And I go, okay, I think they would go, oh, XYZ. And so I try to do the XYZ to to push myself out of the uncomfortable situation that I feel, or the uncomfortable the discomfort that I feel. And I think it really helps. And it's very curious, but I quite enjoy it. It's quite nice, because then it makes me feel, hey, I'm actually quite flexible. I can actually explore these different things, and I can actually be a, my 100% just by taking elements of other things that I've learned in the past. If that makes sense, yeah.
Definitely. I mean,
Yeah.
the characters are always a part of you.
I feel like it's such
It-
a complex thing that putting it into words is almost it's incredibly hard sometimes, because it's so intricate. The psychology behind it, it's so intricate and fascinating, that sometimes it's hard to put it into words.
what is the one aspect of acting you enjoy the most, and what is the one aspect of acting you enjoy the least?
The aspect that I enjoy the most, and that I've always have, again since I was a kid, is that I get to be somebody else. And I love it, because I just love exploring different, pushing myself to my limits, really, and discovering what I can do, who I could be, but just being somebody else. It's it's the most amazing thing that about acting, and also the fact that you're playing, that you're doing, just running around maybe, or using the props that you get, or doing different scenes. It's just mind-blowing how fascinating and how much I enjoy that. And also being with other people and seeing how they with other people, other actors, when you're sharing scenes, and see how they work, and see you know how much how invested they are, and they make you go, oh, I'm actually investing so much, like this, like that you forget, basically you forget who you are almost, because you're so much into the body of somebody else, almost, that you go, it's almost as if the world around you disappears. I know it sounds very cliche, but it really feels like that. It really feels like you're in a completely different world, you and the other person. um and I find that incredibly exciting. The thing I like the least, it's I, I think probably the tension that I get when I have to prepare for a character, having to learn, because I put myself under a lot of pressure when I get to learn the lines, when I have to learn monologues, for example, or because when I always sometimes go, oh, I could do this better. For me, I always can do something better, and sometimes it is a bit too much, on my mental health, I would say, because I'm always self-critical, very self-critical. So I think probably the pressure of getting those lines learned on time, um, and getting them done perfectly, because if they're not, then I'm just not happy with it. And I always want to be my 100%, because again, I'm super self-critical.
Why might it be easier to try different things as someone else compared to trying new things as yourself? Because it does seem like you feel a lot more comfortable being someone else.
I used to actually. I think I used to. I think I used to use it as a hideout almost.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think in the past years I've gone through a massive transformation, and now I feel so much more confident in my very own skin. Um so I think what you say is partially true that I did feel comfortable being somebody else, but mostly because I just enjoy playing and just go, hey, let me just play someone else because you know why it's a snap out of the everyday life, I think. But now I feel so much. Now I feel better about myself, regardless. Anyways, as in like about the person I am. I quite like both worlds now. Before, I think I used to use it too much. Not too much. Use it. Well, I used to hide in the characters too much, and now I found the right balance for it. Um, so I enjoy both worlds, I guess. More being in my own self now than I used to be, which I'm quite proud of because it's a process. It takes time. It takes time learning about you and learning to be yourself. But also, I think I've stopped comparing myself to other people, which it was a massive thing, a thing for me, and I think it probably is a massive thing for everybody because again, with social media, we compare ourselves to people every day. Um, and now I'm just like, I'm just doing my own thing. I'm being me, even though we never really know who we are because we grow constantly. um I am learning to like this person that I am, as much as I'm learning to like the characters that who I am, that I can portray, really. um yeah.
Do you find yourself being able to watch your performances back, or are you your own biggest critic?
Absolutely not. If there is one thing that I cannot do, I would love to, but I can't. It's literally look at my performances. I just cannot do it. I can't. Um, I really can't. It's extremely hard. It is something that I would like to be able to do, and it is something that I'm hoping maybe in the future I'll be able to. But currently, no, it's extremely hard for me to look at myself because I pick every single thing that I know I could have done better and go, oh God, that was terrible. No, I don't know how you people can like this because I don't. Um, yeah, I mean, obviously, it's always harder for us to see ourselves, even in pictures, even with modeling. It's always you see yourself in a different way than a photographer does or anyone else does, and that's just the nature of it. But even though I know that I'm being self-critical, I still struggle. I still struggle looking at my performances, and I can't do that.
I find that interesting because you seem passionate about learning, and I think looking back to your performances could serve as, you know, useful information to apply for the future in different roles.
I absolutely agree. Yeah, I do. But the problem, you know what it is that again, being extremely self-critical and extremely um what do you say? Extremely eager to do things perfectly. The reason why I struggle looking at myself and going, oh, okay, next time I could do this better, it's because I would like to do this better right now. I would like to change it right now. Not next performance. I want to change this right now, and that's why it is a struggle because I know I cannot. And seeing that is there and cannot be changed for a better, you know, version that I could have done is extremely hard for me to accept.
Now, you were previously in athletics and you did dancing. What was the sport that you happened to have played, and how might the discipline needed to train as an athlete and dancer shaped how you prepare to play a role?
So I used to do, as a kid, I did gymnastics and then I did some dancing and athletics. I think athletics was one of my favorites sports so far. I did sprint running. I was training for competitions, and it was absolutely amazing. Um, the fact that you turn up at the stadium 5 days a week, and you have to do what the coach tells you to do. It doesn't matter if you don't feel like it, you just have to do it. So you have to go for whatever, how many leaps you have to do, you just do them. So I think it really prepared me and prepares you mentally, in a sense that it builds your mental strength, because you go, I still do it to this day. I really think part of my routine and part of the successes that I've been having is by being constant also in working out. I still do my runs every day, because even when I feel tired, even when I feel like I cannot do it, I just want to lay in bed, I go, no, wait, I have to go for my run, because it shows me that I can push myself, and how hard I can push myself, and how much I can push myself. And that helps me know that when I that helps me not, that helps me go when I have to prepare for a role, even when I'm tired, even when I feel like I cannot do it, because it happens so often that you go, I don't think I can do this one. I don't think I can pull this off. You remind yourself that you've built yourself with that endurance of, I can go for runs when I'm tired. I've been training since I was younger, um, to be an athlete and you know, to be a runner again. Um, I know that I can do it. I know that I pushed myself hard enough when I had to do my runs, when I had to go to the stadium, when I had to, go for my morning runs. I pushed myself to that limit. And so I know that even if I'm tired, even if I believe that I cannot do it, I can. It's like, I think mentally, it goes hand in hand, because when you keep yourself active and you challenge yourself every day, because again, working out is a challenge for your body and for your mind, you know that you can challenge yourself in every other aspect of your life. So in that ways, yes, I think it's been very important for me to be able to, to work out and to be able to to be into sport, because again, it really did build my mental strength, as well as the physical strength, because in a lot of, when you're on set, and when you're preparing a play, even a play, you spending more than 8 hours a day rehearsing, and even your body, it's under a lot of pressure most of the day, most of the hours of the day, because you're preparing for the show. So I think obviously being in good health and being able to know your body and to know when you're tired and how much you can push yourself is very important, and obviously sport really helps with this. But it's mostly mentally, absolutely, I would say, yeah. And it's something that actually I see this every day. Like, sometimes I go for my runs when I feel quite down, and when I'm a mile and a half in, I go, hey, but now I feel like I can do this thing. I like, my brain automatically isn't tired anymore to send that email, to reach out to the casting director, or to, do whatever I have to do, that before I would feel, oh, maybe I'll do it tomorrow. I would say after I finish my run, I know exactly what I'm going to do.
How do you avoid, and you've talked about it in the realm of modeling with
Yeah.
the aspect about the height, but how do you avoid being perceived by casting agents as only being able to do certain types of roles? In other words, what are the things you do to avoid being limited in the kinds of roles you are considered for?
I think it helps that I'm a very versatile individual. So I I can pull off very different looks and very different um ways of talking and moving and behaving. So I think that really helps when you get asked, for example, into an audition, to do things differently, um the scene in different ways and to look in different ways. So what I like to do is, when I go for auditions, is that I like to look the closest to the character that I have to portray. So, for example, I had an audition for Princess Margaret. I think it was some time ago, and I tried to look as closely as her as possible, so that I could be perceived more fit for the character, obviously. And so I don't always just look normal and like neutral. I like to play with my look when I do my auditions as well, and I think that really helps. um so if, for example, I have to be more on the punk side, which had happened for another for another casting that I've done in the past, is that I would, for example, I don't know, pull off something leathery, or maybe like just um a little accessory that could make it look like I'm more fit. I'm more into that aspect of the trends, if that makes sense, you know. So I think I like to play with the looks, even subtly, but I think it's very important to have that, so that the casting directors don't perceive you necessarily as just a plain canvas, but more see you for a role that you're going for. And then again, when they ask you to do the scenes in different ways, you can obviously show the different sides of you that you have, and I think that also is very, very important, um, for the outcome in the end.
Are there certain types of roles that you aren't particularly interested in? Like, for example, if you were offered a role in a comic book movie, let's say the role of Catwoman, would you be open to that? Does that interest you creatively in any way?
I think again, I really like to take any opportunity, unless obviously I feel like it doesn't serve me, or I feel like it would somewhat not benefit my career and not benefit me. Um, but I think I would obviously like to learn more about the character. So I never say no, unless it's obviously very like direct and go and something that I definitely don't want to do, or definitely does not um, fit into my niche and into what I want to be seen as. But yeah, no, I think I think I like to learn about every character that I get offered, and you know, there isn't something specific that I wouldn't want to go for. Again, maybe in general, I wouldn't like to do anything that is um, maybe, you know, like comical. It's not really my type of work. But any other than that, I mean, anything, yes, I'm quite open with, really, yeah.
Oh, you don't find comedy as a genre that's aligned with your interests or skill set?
You know, for some reason it's not. Maybe because I never really liked comedies massively, unless they were like dark comedies, I suppose. I don't know. Um, yeah, I think probably because mentally it makes me feel like it's not taken seriously, maybe. And because I feel like I really want to market myself into very um, complex and serious stuff. I'm not saying that comical characters are not complex, but it makes me feel like they are perceived in a different way. Obviously, this is just my opinion, and this is just how I feel towards them. Um, but probably that's the reason why I would probably avoid them. Yeah.
So you will not be the love interest in the next Mr. Bean movie if it were to.
Probably not.
No, I understand. Why? Speaking of love interest, in terms of your personal life, do you find that you would only be interested in or drawn to someone else who is in the entertainment industry, or could you see yourself having a connection with someone that's an accountant or uh, y- or someone who is a diplomat? Does it have to be someone is in the same field as you are
It really doesn't,
because
but
of the
obviously,
relating? I'm sorry, sorry to interrupt,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah,
in
no,
terms
no
of
worries.
relating.
It really, you know what it is? industry, you hang out with people that are in the entertainment, and so it's so much easier to have to to build relationships and friendships in that world, in that realm. But I do not believe in being selective. Obviously, if you like somebody, or if you feel comfortable with somebody on any level that isn't necessarily in the entertainment industry, then I definitely wouldn't see why that would be an issue. Um absolutely not. I do not believe that I would that even in the future that I would be selective in my relationships, let's say, if they're not fitting into that world. Again, it's easier obviously to meet people that do the same stuff as you, because obviously you share more things and you have more things in common, and you you share the same world, and so you can put yourself up together. You can um, be an inspiration for each other. Really, you can um, learn different. You can work on things together. So that is easier. But I wouldn't want my life to be limited to to just being with people of that world. Then again, if it happens, it happens. You never know. But I don't like to be too close to. I don't like to limit myself in any aspect of my life, really, and especially also relationships and friendships. Yeah.
And the reason why I asked that is because of that competition element. You know, if you're involved with someone that's in the exact same industry, you're going to find yourself potentially comparing your career trajectory to theirs. And
Uh,
it could
yeah.
be interesting and complicated.
That is true, but at the end of the day, what I'm starting to realize also is that obviously I have friends that are not in the entertainment industry. And when I talk about the things that I do, they do not understand it. They do not necessarily get my struggles. They do not get, if not the struggles or my victories. They don't really understand them. While when I talk with people that are in the entertainment industry, they do understand more. And so you have both worlds. So of course there is the element of being in competition with each other sometimes, but there's also the element of understanding each other more, being a support another because you're living in this. So in some ways, when yeah, and it's nicer to share how my how career is going with people that are sharing the same career as you, or even if they're in a different place, or if they're up than you can exchange ideas, and you can exchange um advices, and so they can help you improve, and they can help you get to point A to point B, even though sometimes you may just be like, I actually envy you because you got this role and I haven't. So it's mostly trying to see um the best side of the sphere, if that makes sense. um so I think it is kind of easier to have friends that share the same interest, though, because again, they understand where you come from, and they understand how tiring sometimes it can be when you after a day of shooting, maybe you go, I just don't really feel like I can go out, example. And another friend could just be like, oh, you're just being a princess, you have everything, you've just been on a set, and you think it's hard enough, you think your work is hard. Sometimes they don't understand it. Well, people that obviously are into the same stuff as you, again, as I said before, they do completely get you, and it's a relief sometimes because you feel understood, and you can share more about the jobs that you're going to get, the jobs that you're getting, and the auditions that you're doing. And um you know sometimes they even tell you, there is this casting, why don't you apply for it? Because I feel like I'm not going to be casted because, for example, I'm blonde and you know um so I guess in some ways it's easier that way when you share something with somebody.
And in terms of the future, do you see yourself moving to the US full time in the future in order to fully achieve your goals, or is the UK home base from now on?
I absolutely do